polling shows him now down not only in swing states, but in 3 new states that aren't even swing states. So the disaster that was that television performance is just becoming more disastrous by the hour. The key here is, I think there's several keys. One is a political matter. The degree to which you can keep a coalition together that believes in you and can be sufficiently strong to propel you to a victory. I think the answer is you can't. I mean, all the polling would suggest that you are getting eroded in terms of any kind of popular support. You haven't done the one thing that you needed to do, which is really go out there and handle this aggressively. To be fair, Joe Biden did go out the next day and he did that one stump speech and he seemed vital and vibrant. But after that, there has been nothing. He's been cloistered with his family in that, I guess it was a Vanity Fair shoot that was planned, right. And Jill Biden, his wife, seems to be the leader of that crew now. I guess it seems as though that family has really closed ranks quite tightly, and Jill Biden may be the commander-in-chief of the family anyway, and the key to decision-making here. But at some point, despite public support, there's enough private conversation and there's enough loss of donors that you will have no choice. And I really think that's where Joe Biden is. And this is not to say that Joe Biden is some vacant Weekend at Bernie's guy who they prop up. I do believe that he's probably generally in better shape than we saw on Thursday night. But I also believe that there are more Thursday nights than they're telling us.
And here's the thing. What if, the missiles start flying during one of the Thursday nights? Don't you want someone who's able to be on with it and making, good decisions 24/7?
Well, this is what's interesting to me because this is another part of this question. You're talking about the demands of the presidency, which are immense. I mean, he's been flying all over the place. I don't know, given the state of his physical being and maybe mental acuity, that I would have allowed him to go flying all over the place. Maybe he wasn't at the G7, or you send Kamala Harris. I don't know, but I don't see that as. On the other hand, you kind of have to, as a world leader, attend. Right. I mean, as the leader of the USA. But to your point, you have around you, and I think it's pretty clear in the case of the Biden administration, people who can handle with great competence those issues that might come up. And these are highly skilled, the Ron Klains of the world and those who, Lloyd Austins of the world, the people who occupy that administration, they know what they're doing. I mean, if Biden had just taken an Ambien or something and they couldn't, they had to make a decision, I think they could cobble together a decent decision. They're highly competent people. But there is the other side of it, which is your relationship with the American people and with campaigning. I don't think he's got the stuff to do that. And here is the part that I resent. I think they knew that. And I think that's the gaslighting that I talk about. You told us that he has, he's actually so impressive in meetings. He's like, I don't know, Stephen Hawking meets Neil deGrasse Tyson in these meetings. He's just, the mind is amazing. It's sharp. He covers, and you hear that from more and more people. I'll give you an example from just this morning. Anthony Fauci talked about how sharp Biden was. Here it is. Fauci speaks out around doubts of Biden's mental state. Dr. Anthony Fauci defended President Joe Biden as analytical.
It's not fake. That's real.
But Fauci said that when he was working for the Biden administration, the president seemed capable and analytical. And he goes on, did he have a bad cold? Did he take an antihistamine and make him groggy? I don't know, said Fauci. Okay, that's what Fauci said. So, look, I'll take Fauci at his word, but my feeling is, hey, guys, we're out of excuses. He had a cold. He was on an antihistamine. He'd been traveling. I'd heard that. He'd been traveling but he'd been back in this country for almost 2 weeks. I really feel, I'm sorry, but I really feel that Father Time has caught up with Joe Biden. And John Rothman may disagree with me, but it almost doesn't matter because, as I was saying, there's the political track that this is moving on, and then there's the practical presidential track. I think from a practical presidential narrative track, which is what you're talking about, something happens middle of the night, Mr. President, we need your attention. I believe there is a staff there and a highly competent administration in place, and there isn't an issue. I would much prefer to have Joe Biden on a hospital gurney than Donald Trump awakened in the middle of the night with some emergency situation. So please make no mistake about it. But then there is the political, and the political realities are all grim. I do not believe Joe Biden can win this election, and I think he has to drop out. The question is, will he understand that? And can that be communicated to the boss, who increasingly appears to be Jill Biden? And this is the last thing I'll say about that. There are a lot of interests around the White House and around the presidency. You have no idea the infrastructure, the layers of people whose livelihood, whose hopes, whose futures depend on the loyalties and the plans they've made around Joe Biden and a Joe Biden presidency. It starts with Joe Biden, but it extends to his cabinet and on down. There's so many functionaries in the White House who do so much, or White House adjacent. It's a massive organization. All of those people have an interest in what? In Joe Biden continuing. So that's a very big chorus also. That's why powerful Democrats have to come forward. And you've heard, I think, the first bits of that, and you're hearing more and more now as the days proceed. Albert, you have the poll up. We have a poll up in the chat. In the chat, there should be a poll that offers you a chance to predict when Joe Biden will drop out of the race. What are the choices?
Some votes for Tuesday already, so it's in the live chat. A lot now, a lot coming in. He won't drop out, so I'll keep you updated throughout the show.
Albert, thank you.
We do offer you the option that he won't drop out, but we also offer you the chance to predict when he will.
Do you think that if the same thing happened at the debate with Trump, that Republicans would be calling for Trump to drop out? Or is this just a logical thing with Democrats where they look at the situation and go, uh-oh, we have a problem? Or if it was a Republican situation, would they be circling the wagons even tighter? Because we've seen Trump have these weird speech moments where it looks like he goes off the rails too. No one's calling for him to step down.
I think it's a great question, and I think it's a great point that's implied, which is the old line used to be Democrats fall in love, GOP falls in line.
Yeah.
The GOP, they close ranks. And in this case, you've got a very intimidating, frankly, bullying figure at the top. Donald Trump, they wouldn't dare cross him. Yeah. Their political futures are on the line. I think he could have a whole full-on Mitch McConnell 20-second freeze-up, and I think they would explain it away somehow. I mean, they explained away how vibrant Biden sounded at the State of the Union by talking about the fact that Biden was all hopped up. Remember, they had played this card long ago. They had said that Joe Biden was diminished, so significantly diminished mentally, didn't know where he was, he's not really the president. And then he comes out in the State of the Union and he crushes it, and he ad-libs a bunch of stuff. You know, remember he was getting heckled and he ad-libbed and handled it. He
was amazing.
He was like a nightclub comic up there.
Yeah.
Right. So they say, well, he was on drugs, he's on amphetamines, I think they should do drug testing. Now he has a rough outing, I mean really rough outing. Yeah. And now there's more and more reporting that these rough outings are far more common than we've been led to believe. And for that reason, I just think that we're in a different spot, but it is also true that that spot is one that we deal with in a much different way than the GOP does. Media is steering this narrative. That's not wrong. I think Josh is right when he says that. The media is cranking up the heat on this narrative. This is a To be blunt about it, it's a sexy topic, you know, somebody who is so addled that he's got to think about dropping out of the race. But it's not so outrageous as a narrative either. But to Kim's point, and I think it's important because this is one that I maintained for a long time because, you know, I was a big defender of Joe Biden. By the way, I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. I didn't want Joe Biden to be president to begin with. I was behind Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Those are my picks. And I wasn't happy with Joe Biden. But Joe Biden, give him credit. He ran, I think, as a centrist, and he delivered as a centrist. He has a really great track record. The infrastructure plan, the CHIPS plan, I mean, what he did for veterans. It's actually a really long list of things. He's an environmental president, I think, the likes of which we will never see again. And yet, he's not a perfect president, and maybe there's some really gaping holes in some of his policy decision making. But having said that, I think he's really got a track record to be proud of. But I want to be clear, I'm not a rah-rah Biden guy. But I did feel as though this is what the Democrats do. They shoot their own. They shot Al Franken before he even had a chance. I think Al Franken could have been president. Al Franken was brilliant. He was hardworking. He was dedicated. He was a public servant. And Democrats dragged him out. They knew another Democrat could take that seat and it wouldn't be an issue. And Al Franken succumbed to that pressure. There's so much more at stake here. And I don't know. I'm ready to take a meeting with the audience. That's what I love about this particular medium, that I can see your comments and we can discuss it further. And Rothman, I'm sure, has his own very strong take, which comes with decades and decades of history. But I just know what the situation is now. And I thought, wow, what an easy debate to win. You have a guy there in Donald Trump who is just making stuff up in all the ways possible. You could have taken credit for things like the infrastructure plan, and you didn't. I mean, it was the weirdest night. It was horrible to see. And it made us wonder who is the real guy. So, you know, some people feel it's all just pressure. But there is, and we had Cenk on, you know, earlier in the week, there is a growing chorus of people who feel that that pressure is appropriate given the shortcomings of Joe Biden and that disastrous performance. I mean, it's reflective of something, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he was so diminished. It was like watching a different guy, wasn't it, Kim? I mean,
completely. It was shocking. I was shocked. I was very shocked. I was very surprised. In all the things I expected from that debate, that was not it. But what's interesting is that Republicans have been kind of beating that drum for a while. And I thought, you know, that was just one of their talking points, that they were manipulating videos and you know, he wasn't diminished, because I saw him at the State of the Union, right? I mean, he seemed like perfectly fine to me. So I was pretty surprised.
It was one of their talking points. You were right. Mm-hmm. It's just that he delivered one of their talking points on that night. And now it's created the situation we're in. Biden's expected to meet with governors and congressional leaders today. That's probably going on. Kim will update you on that.
Yep.
And in conversations with more than 24 current and former Democratic officials, as well as donors and longtime Biden allies, all of whom spoke on the condition of anonymity, of course, to avoid alienating Biden, many of these people say they have already made up their minds that the president should quit. But they feel the decision needs to come from him, and it needs to come this week.
It's scary. You know, I'm sorry, please finish.
They've held off going to Biden directly, hoping he would make the decision himself, but patience is wearing thin. Multiple Democrats told CNN, amid signs that Biden has taken no steps to seriously consider the mounting concerns, that he's poised to travel to swing states this weekend, aides say, a sign that he has no plans of changing course, that they have concerns. On Tuesday, yesterday, ABC announced Biden's going to sit down with George Stephanopoulos. Well, that should do it. The first TV interview since the debate. The clips will air Friday. There was hope that the president's family would convince him to step aside, given how badly the debate went. However, at Biden's retreat on Sunday at Camp David, that's the one I was talking about, it became apparent the parent's family rallied around his decision to continue his campaign, blaming the staff for his missteps. I will say this. If you know this guy is in this kind of shape, first of all, he should step aside. And he should have stepped aside a long time ago. And I blame the Democratic machine for not allowing a primary. A legitimate primary should have gone down in this country. It is obscene that this Democratic machine, the same one that robbed Bernie Sanders, that they got in the way of a legitimate challenge to a future here with a candidate that's viable, vital, and represents potential to stave off a despotic leader who is waiting to take office. So that's the Democratic machine, the DNC. They prevented those primaries. So I'm very angry about that. But now let me just address his staff. If you know that he is struggling this way, then it is malpractice to put him on that stage. You guys wanted that debate. That was your debate. Those were your rules. How could you put that man up there? You should all be fired. You should all be fired and be ashamed of what you've done. That's his staff. But the reality is the reality. And we'll talk more about it. But I see not a lot of good choices for Joe Biden.
Mindy says the Democrats need to be honest with us, the American people. And I feel this is a huge point, because if you feel lied to or you feel duped somehow that they knew this was going on and didn't say anything and kind of tried to, cover it up and push it all forward, then is there a lack of trust now? Do we have a broken trust between the Democratic Party and the people that may have voted Democrat?
Well, you have broken trust, but the way that would, manifest itself is they would just not vote. The fear, I think, that you'd get a Trump presidency is so significant and so important that it may be one of those things where, like, I'll deal with my mistrust with you later. You know what I mean? It's like when you have a fight with your husband or something and you go, we'll talk about this later tonight. Right now, we've got to put out the fire in the kitchen or whatever it is. I think that it's true, though, that we all wanted to believe, he's mostly good. Obviously, he's older. You can see him slowing down, but he seems pretty good. And I got to say, my friends have places in Rehoboth. I grew up in Washington, D.C. My dad, I know a lot of people who work at the White House and stuff, and we all used to vacation in Rehoboth. We were middle class, pretty, just you'd rent a motel rooms and stuff, but we'd have a great time. We were just kids, but that's where these guys go, Rehoboth, okay? Rehoboth Beach, Delaware is where the Bidens go, and they have summer. So I mentioned that. You'll forgive me for the preamble, but I was just trying to explain that I get a lot of reports from people who see Joe Biden there, many reports. And I even see pictures of them talking to Joe Biden. He's on his bike all the time. So there is a sense like, well, Joe Biden seems like he's in pretty good shape. He's always biking at Rehoboth, and he always seems like he's kind of got it together. But I don't really understand how mental acuity works. Maybe you can ride your bike and look good, and yet somehow, once in a while you click out and don't know, what's going on. But this meeting today that Joe Biden is having with governors, it's significant, but I think he may not be able to stop this bleeding. Help me with this. Let me just see what the...
Luis for $5 says sick plus jet lag plus over-prepared plus dog ate my homework equals just shut up already. You're making things worse by keeping it going.
Oh, yeah. I do. Luis, thanks for the $5.
Big shout out.
I do like mad respect for all those excuses, though. Yeah. Hey, brother, I know how it feels. You know what I mean? Sometimes you want it to go better. Charles Floyd, howdy from Gilead, Texas. What up, Texas?
Big shout out.
Well, you can all go to hell. I'm going to
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Damn straight, man. Howdy from the heart of Gilead, Texas. Thank you, MTS, for being a voice of reason in these surreal times. Wow, isn't that nice? Charles
Really
Floyd,
nice.
Thank you. Wow, I love my Texans. My brother lives in Texas. Yeah. He's He's a full-on Texan now, man.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Yeah, right on. Thank you, Charles. Thank you for the love, man. Really appreciate it. We're a crowd-funded show, so when you and the crowd fund us at all, we make a big deal out of it. Donald the Maine Coon, there's the 25th Amendment to remove Biden now. You could remove him. It is true. This is an interesting question for John Rothman. Remind me, put that on ice for a second. Here is the interesting thing about that question. It's sort of a moot point, but it's nonetheless a really interesting technical question that Rothman can probably answer. You could remove him. By the way, the 25th Amendment is a lot harder to pull off than it's talked about. It was talked about a lot with Donald Trump. You need the cabinet to get together. There has to be a vote. Then there has to be Congress involved. It's a pretty big deal. But let's assume you could pull it off, the 25th Amendment. Technically, the delegates would stay with Joe Biden because it has nothing to do with his presidency. Those delegates were pledged to him as a candidate. And so I believe that he would retain those delegates. You need him to release those delegates. Now, the only person who might actually have, so we'll ask John Rothman. I love that. Thank you for a provocative question. The only thing I would say is that he has a significant war chest. Anybody else who would try to take that top of ticket is going to be starting from zero. Now, maybe you could get the money.
Can't they roll it over to the next candidate?
No. It doesn't work that way. It wasn't pledged to some general fund. It was pledged to Biden-Harris. So Harris is probably the only person who would have legit rights to that money, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I think it's a couple $100 million. So
he still was outpacing Trump in June with contributions. Yeah.
Then Trump told all the oil company executives, "I'll give you whatever you want. You draw up whatever plans. You tell me where you want to drill, and we'll do it." You know. And he got a big dump of cash. Gaia says, "I feel like Project 2025 is coming." It does have that feeling. It does have that feeling.
Project 2025 is where they're prepared, right? They've got all these people in place. So on day one, if Trump should get back in the White House, they're ready to roll with all these people doing all these conservative things in all the ways that you can think that they would do it.
Well, it's also, it's the architecture, essentially, of what would be that, which you just described, which is a reimagining of the U.S. government. Much of the U.S. government would be dismantled. The civil service, that kind of these people who kind of lifetime GSers, government service people would be removed. You'd end that program. There's a whole way in which they would change the structure of things, such that hang on, is everything okay? Okay, all right. Okay, all right. But yes, but essentially, it's the overall strategy and architecture of what the next 4 years would look like and beyond. So, Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.